Good evening. We want to thank Matt for the harp playing as we walked in. That was really nice to have that. I'm Maureen McLaughlin, and I am chair of Porter Medical Center. And before we begin, I'd like the board members to just stand up and introduce themselves so people know who you are.
Excuse me, could we please have amplification?
Okay, there you go. I'm just not close enough. It's my fault. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So anyways, I'd like our board members to stand up and introduce themselves if they could, please.
I'm Steve Kohler. I am Vice President of Medical Staff and ex officio voting member of the board. Joined about a year ago. I work in the Department of Radiology, and I'll be turning the clock on 20 years at Porter this July.
I'm Pete DeGraff.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you
please.
go ahead, Pete.
I'm Pete DeGraff, President of Otter Creek Engineering and Vice Chair of the Board.
Hi, Kim Downs-Burns. I work over at Middlebury College. I'm a board member of PMC, and I have been at the college and in Middlebury 11 years.
Hi, I'm Judd Bartlett. I'm a community member. I live in Cornwall. This is my second year on the board.
I'm Patrick Norton. I've been on the board for a few years, and I am the VP for Finance and Treasurer at Middlebury. Live in Ferrisburg and have been here in Vermont for 13 years.
I'm Sivan Kotel. I was a fill-in appointee to the board last year, and tonight I'm up to stay on for election. I'm one of the founders of Stonecutter Spirits.
I'm Lindy Schiffer. I live in Middlebury. I'm work at Middlebury College, and I've been on the board to finish my first year.
Go ahead.
Ingrid Henderson Jackson. This is I just completed my first year. Lynn Larson. I'm a general practitioner in town, and I've been on the board 6 years about, and been in town for the 4 years.
My name is Dick Foote. I am a lifetime resident of Middlebury. I have law practice here in town, and I'm just completing my first year.
Ben Rosenberg, orthopedic surgeon at Champlain Goddard Orthopedics in Middlebury for the past 23 years. Just finishing my board term after 9 years on the board.
Wayne Grant from Virgins, finishing up today, 20 years.
I'm Jan Bark. I live in New Haven, and I'm the president of the Middlebury Porter Auxiliary, which is a fundraising arm of the hospital, and I have a courtesy seat on the board.
My name is Bill Townsend. I work at J.P. Correct & Sons.
Thank you. Everybody? Up. One more.
I'm Jim Keys. I work at Middlebury College in New Charlotte.
Thanks, Jim. Just want to say welcome to former CEO Jim Daly here tonight. We're glad to see you. Welcome back. A point of order is that we need to approve the minutes from last year's meeting. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
So moved. Second? Okay, Kim, all in favor? Just approving the minutes. Aye. Okay, raise your cards. Okay. Thank you. Okay, good. You got that, Susan? Okay. So, yes?
The minutes, usually we receive information in the mail. There was nothing this year, so it's impossible to vote on minutes we can't read.
I don't know the process that goes along with that.
Well, usually there's a bulletin that comes out with the budget and all the information about a year's
Okay.
hospital. And
Yeah.
that includes minutes from the last year. It's impossible to vote without.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what that, I'm sorry, I don't know what the process is, so I'll make sure that we, okay. Okay, Ron's outside.
Is there any reason why that information wasn't sent
Ron's outside and he's the one who manages that? Oh, he's here,
So
right, yeah.
they were
Yeah.
they were meant to be posted on the website and they weren't. That's my responsibility.
They were what?
They were meant to be posted on our website, which is where we've been posting the annual meeting information, and we didn't post them this
Oh,
year.
that's where you should go for
Right,
the.
yeah, from now, that's what we've been doing for the last few years,
Is there a
electronic.
report there too?
Yes.
And the budget?
and the budget.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll make a note for next year to
Yep.
direct people to the website.
Right.
Okay, got it. Great, thank you. So welcome. We're so pleased to have a full house tonight. It's great to be in a room with people who care so much about our local hospital. We had originally had a different agenda plan, but we changed that because we want to hear from you. And we're going to have that opportunity in a short while. Governor Jim Douglas has graciously agreed to help guide that conversation. For 90 years, Porter has been here, providing quality care, healing, and employment to many in our community. To state the obvious, the past 10 months have been rocky. Many important fundamental decisions have been made for Porter's future. Pace, style, process, communication all played a role in how they were received. I speak for the entire board to say we regret how challenging and disruptive this has been for the community, but especially for the valued employees of Porter who do the good work of taking care of our patients in our community every single day. These past 10 months do not define Porter, and they do not define this community. This has been and continues to be a very challenging time for small hospitals in Vermont and across the country. In 2015, 700 small hospitals closed across the United States. That is up 400 from the year before. Our goal is to make sure Porter is here for another 90 years, strong and resilient. Every decision we make in this changing landscape is based on that premise. The real work lies ahead, and we all have to do this together. There are over 800 people associated with Porter every day. Doctors, nurses, staff, leadership, and volunteers. We are all committed to the thousands of patients we serve every year. They are counting on us to get this right. We're very pleased to have Interim CEO Dr. Fred Kniffen at the helm. We know he's the right leader for this time of transition. Already, we are seeing and hearing positive feedback acknowledging his openness and his welcoming style. I'd like you all to join me in welcoming and thanking Fred for his leadership. We believe the healing has begun. We believe there is renewed optimism for Porter. We are eager to listen to you tonight. We value your feedback. Our hope is that at the end of this evening, we will all leave together united in our commitment to Porter, to working together, and to moving forward. Thank you for coming. I'm going to turn this over now to Dr. Steve Kohler, Vice Chair of the Medical Staff.
Well, I'm actually speaking on behalf of Chris Anderson and all the medical staff, I think. Chris happens to be out of the country right now, so it falls to me. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you. My comments are sort of, I think, from a medical staff perspective, but they sort of come from my heart too, so I may blur the line there a little bit. But I wanted to share with you sort of some of my perspective and maybe the medical staff perspective on how things have evolved these last months. The only certainty in healthcare is change, and we, the medical staff, get it. We've got to adapt if we're going to survive. That change is inevitable is not in question, but of equal and perhaps greater importance is how we change. For implementation will most certainly inform outcome. And in our evolutions, it's vital that we do not lose who we are. Change was needed at Porter. Strategies were developed, plans were made and executed, and results, unfortunately, were not consistently those expected or hoped for. These things you know, and hence I need not recount. I would like to instead share with you a few things that you may not have heard. Things that give me a deep appreciation for the people and processes that make up Porter, and instill in me great confidence in Porter's ability to navigate the future. Central to recent events was a widening difference of an opinion as to what was the best way forward for Porter. And pivotal to this institution's ability to bridge this gulf was the genuine understanding that all parties involved truly cared about this place. Though perspectives born of different environments and backgrounds inform very different opinions of how best to proceed, everyone at the table was there because they care about this place, and that counts for a lot. Instead of anger and confrontation, the understanding that we all wanted to help Porter succeed resulted in an environment that fostered heartfelt and respectful communication that flowed through appropriate internal channels and successfully activated mechanisms necessary to restore institutional balance. The system worked. Resulting changes have set the stage for a bridging of the divide and defined a path forward that people will want to be part of. The presence of Fred Niffen in the corner office is all the proof I could ask that that is true. Lest my newfound optimism mislead you, the process of these past months has been hard, extremely difficult for all those involved. Despite, or perhaps because of that, I am proud to have been a part of it. What makes me think we'll get it right this time? Well, we actually learned a thing or two. In pushing back against that which we are not, we rediscovered who we are. And what we are is a community. A community of caregivers nested within this, our greater community, for none of us in this room are removed from another by more than 2 degrees of separation. We are a community in which the contribution of every member must be valued, where the voice of every member must be welcome, and in which what befalls the least powerful of us affects everyone. For all of us are stakeholders in Porter's future success. This is what we will remember as we move forward. In our discovery, I find a message of great hope and optimism. Together, we will heal this community of healers. Together, we will rebuild trust and goodwill, and we will link arms. Nurses, administrators, doctors, ancillary staff, allied health professionals, board members, and you, our community, our family. And together we will meet and match any hurdle, and in so doing, we will reforge a Porter that will stand for another century. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kohler. And now, Fred Niffen.
This is for my friends at MCTV. I like to wander, so Pat, will you let me know if you can hear me? Good? Okay. Thank you, Maureen, for your kind words, and Steve as well. Thank you. And thank you all. So I've been going to board meetings for 16 years, and I've learned a few things, and one of them is that when you show up and the room is packed, standing room only, it's not always a good sign for the home team. Tonight's going to be different. I look out here and I see our community. I see friends and neighbors. I see my medical staff colleagues. I see nursing colleagues. I see staff members. And everybody's here because we care about Porter. Now, maybe you came out tonight to tell us what a great job we've been doing down on South Street for the last few months. Could be. It's possible. Maybe you came out because you're not so happy with how things have been going on South Street. And that's okay. This is a community meeting. That's why we're here. We want to hear from you. We want your feedback. We want your suggestions. We're all here because we care about Porter. Now, a lot of people here know me and some people don't, so I'm going to go through my Porter history. I worked my first shift in the Porter Hospital Emergency Department on August 1st of 1990. It took me about a week to figure out this is the best place you could ever want to live. Porter was the best place you could ever want to work, and this is the best place you could ever want to be a patient. And people who know me know that's still my mantra. Great place to live, great place to work, great place to be a patient. Between 90 and 1994, I worked as a full-time ER physician. They were great years. I was young. I had time to date my future wife and ride my bike, not necessarily in that order of priority. And she's not here, by the way, and doesn't need to hear that. But, you know.
Yeah, it's on tape.
Right. You know, and then 1994 until 2012 was an 18-year stretch where I served as the medical director of the emergency department. When I stepped down from that position, I said to my physician colleagues, I'm leaving the best job I'll ever have, and I stand by that statement. It's a great job. It's a 50-50 job. Half the time I work as a hospital administrator. And, you know, when you're a working clinician, whether you're a nurse or a physician, you don't have time to fix system problems. You're there, you're on the floor, you're attending to patients. You don't have time to upgrade your EMR. You don't have time to make sure the floors are clean. You don't have time to deal with the environment, the infrastructure. That's what hospital administrators do. We work day in, day out to provide the platform for safe and efficient care. And so that's what I would do in my administrative time in the emergency department for those years. My clinical time, I was taking care of the sick and injured in our community, and that is an enormous privilege. I did a 3-year tour of duty between 2012 and 2015 where I served as chief medical officer. I was working a day a week in the ER, but really was a full-time administrator. That's what my physician colleagues call going to the dark side. You know, my focus was quality and patient safety issues for which I had passion, and I stepped down from that position at the end of 2015. The rest would be recent history. I want to talk now about the message. So I got a call from Maureen 1 week ago Friday and was offered an amazing opportunity. And, you know, we talked all on and off all day long. I was at a family reunion. I'd eat a meal. I'd talk to Mo. I'd eat another meal. We'd talk some more. And, you know, it was clear to me immediately that I needed to come up with a message so that I could make sure I was what the board wanted. I wanted to be aligned with the board and make sure that I was the right person for the job. And it took me no time. In fact, it was painfully obvious to me what the road forward was. So I came up with my message, and I shared it with Maureen, and she shared it with board leaders, and I've since shared it with my management team, and we have shared it with managers, and we've sent it out by email to every Porter employee, and I've talked about it at town halls. I've talked to people in the corridors about where we're going. And to date, I've had no one object. So this is what we're doing. It's a 3-point plan. Number 1, value and respect. Value and respect. And that's for every Porter employee. 700 employees, housekeepers, nurses, x-ray techs, physicians, you name it, value and respect. They have to feel valued and respected. If we can do that, our morale problem will go poof. It will go away. And I think we're already starting to see that. You know, the hardest question I've been asked in the last 10 days is, Fred, well, how are you going to do that? And my response is, well, there's not a spreadsheet for that or an algorithm. But here's how we're going to do it. It's going to start at the top, right here. It's going to trickle down to my management team, and they're going to buy in and walk the walk. We've talked to our managers and set our expectations, and they will walk the walk. And I've talked to Porter employees and said, this is what you should expect. And if you don't get this, let us know, and we will walk the walk. So I'm confident we can make this change and move things forward. put a snap back in people's step, and we will be a better place. Point number 2, style. It's all about style. You will not see, and when I say you, I mean employees, I mean medical staff, I mean community members. You will not see a huge change in substance. A lot of the initiatives that started this fall, we will move them forward. There are initiatives on the books from last fall that we will move forward. There will not be big changes in substance because most of those were the right thing to do. There will, however, be changes in style. And specifically, we're going to need to slow down. Now, we're not going to slow way down, but we need to slow down some. And the reason to slow down is so we can communicate and engage people. If we go full speed ahead at the pace we've been going, it is simply impossible to effectively communicate and engage the people. And for those who say, well, we can't slow down, it's healthcare, you have to go fast, I would argue, if you go that fast, you pay for it on the back end. Yes, you execute and you get the job done you want to get done, and then you have a big mess. You spend weeks and weeks cleaning up, and you never really get buy-in. Let's invest the time up front. Let's talk to the people who do the work. Let's get their input, make good decisions, execute it properly, and we're not going to waste time doing that. And we'll have buy-in and we'll move forward. You know, the last thing I want to say, the last point is change of leadership does not mean end of change. We're going to continue to change. And actually, this is a part of the message. I was a little bit worried that it would come across as negative. And in my first couple days, I spent a good bit of time walking around the corridors. I had people come to me unsolicited saying, Fred, we're going to keep moving forward, right? I was like, oh, okay. Yes. No one has taken that as negative. Everybody seems to get it. The medical staff gets it. The staff gets it. In my conversation with community members, you all get it. We have to keep moving forward. Sitting still is a sitting duck strategy. In healthcare, we are going to have to continue to evolve, to grow, to improve our financial performance. We have to keep moving forward. Everybody gets that. We're going to do it while we value and respect our people. We're going to do it in a thoughtful, methodical manner. We're going to communicate, engage people, and that is our road to success. So, in closing, you know, I am honored to be serving Porter at this time. I'm totally excited by the challenge, and I've been overwhelmed, really, by the support of the physicians, our staff, and our community. And I thank you all very much, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. We've hired a healer. This is very important. I'd like to introduce Governor Jim Douglas, who will now use the opportunity to talk to us.
Thank you, Mo. Let me ask you, Dick, whether people will be heard, whether we should move this around.
I think it'll be okay if you have it there or if you wear it.
Well, I'm thinking of as people have comments in the audience.
If they speak up, it'll pick up.
Okay, good. Well, thanks, Mo, for your leadership. Great to see so many folks who care deeply about Porter. I don't think there's anyone in our community who hasn't had some contact with it one way or another as a provider and or consumer of healthcare services there, and it's important that we come together on an occasion like this to talk about its future and offer our thoughts and ask questions about the institution and how it is going to proceed in the near term and perhaps the long term. The board and staff leaders are prepared to answer questions if you have them for specific people on the leadership team. If you have comments you want to offer in a general sense, that would be just fine as well. There are a lot of folks who want to be heard. I suggest to link this to the if that's possible, so that everybody has a chance to offer a comment or ask a question tonight. We do want to make sure we have a good record of this discussion, so make sure we have your name so that Susan can put it in our recording. T, you want to start?
Hi, Phil from Cornwall. I want to salute John Flowers publicly for his effort to investigate and uncover an accounting misunderstanding, I guess. That's my word, probably not a good one. And I wonder if in subsequent to his article, whether there have been other changes or other financial alterations that we should be aware of.
Patrick, you want to take that?
Sure.
Mike, right there on the corner.
That's it, I'll go here.
Come around.
So what you're specifically talking about is the 340B presentation on the financial statements. And by the way, the audited financial statements for the past 5 years are on the website. So, you know, you can do all your analysis, you can do all your work yourself and see it where it's stated. And yeah, I guess it should have been explicitly stated where 340B kind of showed up in our finances. But when you go to them, you see an operating margin, which was negative, and then when you add in what we call non-operating activities, which included 340B, then you see the total return of net assets. So at the end of the day, that is really the bottom line. And to be clear, I mean, we did have slight surpluses over the past 5 years when you add those numbers up. But slight is really the word. And for an institution that's been around for 90 plus years, to have, even after 340B, to have cash balances and reserves of just 2.2 months is quite thin and quite troubling from a sustainability point of view. So my answer is, the 340B was always stated on our financial statements. It wasn't part of the operating margin, but it was always part of the total operating margin at the end of the day. Are there any other items that are missing? No, there aren't any items that are missing. I would argue that 340B was really not missing. We should have been more explicit about how it was accounted in the financial statements, and that's my answer to T, whoever T is.
You haven't had a chance to read John Flowers' article on the hospital financing. I think you'll find it very helpful, listing some of the issues in a way that anybody can understand it. So I commend it to your reading. Who else has a thought or question? Chip?
James Malcolm, I'm a retired obstetrician. Nancy and I had the honor of being the signatories on letters went out to most of you to raise money for Porter last fall. So this type of a 10-month has really hurt a lot. Because my credibility in signing that letter and saying this is a great place and whatever, obviously we all here because we want it to be. One of the things that I just wanted to say, and it's really related, it's related to the respect issue, which I, as a physician, not being involved, but being surrounded by many people who were telling me different things, most of whom I respected a lot. The respect issue, as Fred talked about and Steve talked about, was certainly key. But as we go forward, I think the respect issue has to be that physicians and nurses, but physicians especially, because right now there's this huge change in how we want to pay physicians. This is major, okay? And part of the change comes about because we have to try to control healthcare costs, whether it's nationally or whether it's for the survival of Porter Hospital. But in that process of trying to get to that point, we obviously went very quickly here, but the whole thing of patients and doctors take care of one patient at a time. And for them to be then categorized into a system that says, you got to see 4 this hour in 15 minutes, and we don't care. Maybe you'll figure it up over a week, but there's no excuse, and if you don't do that, something's going to change in how you're remunerated. There's no sort of back and forth on that. That's national, I realize, but it's also local. School teachers and doctors are pretty much the same. We're trying to find systems where we can pay teachers in a certain way for results. We don't know how to assess those results. If we assess the results on a physical education teacher, then they pretty well have to have at least one All-American in every class, okay? Well, that ain't going to happen. And doctors the same way. I think we have to be very cautious. I don't care what the national norms say, this is Middlebury, and I think that's part of the caution, that's part of the slowness of process, and being able to all work together to come to it. But that type of an approach, I think we have to be very respectful of the physician's opinions as to how they take care of that patient. I'm not talking about the entire, healthcare statistics in the state. At that moment, it's you who's sitting across them or on the operating table or in the delivery room. So, it was my pet peeve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Connie Miller, and I'm a member of the community. I live in Bridgeport, and I am also a patient of Porter Internal Medicine. I am very upset. And the reason I am very upset is my doctor is leaving because of these changes. It took me a while to find a doctor that I really liked, and I found one. Now I have to undergo some medical tests. When I undergo those tests, she's going to be gone. Where am I going to get my results? On the Porter portal? I mean, I think it's ridiculous that Porter Internal Medicine is going to be down to one doctor. And I'm just making a statement. I am very upset.
So, I understand your displeasure. I was at Porter Internal Medicine today, over the lunch hour. I started this job on Monday, a week ago. On Tuesday, I went to visit with Dr. Hadi. I begged. But she is deeper. And I want to make it clear that actually, as of the last 24 hours, I've learned that Porter Internal Medicine is in fact closing. It's closing. The practice will be closing. Dr. Hadi will remain in the community for a few more months practicing, and Dr. Armstrong, I believe is here, will fortunately be staying, and we're sorting out exactly where he will be practicing. There are a number of physicians leaving our community, and I'm assuming that is a topic that makes people unhappy. So, if you don't mind, can I speak to that issue? Go for it. Okay. Just let me just start by giving you my perspective in terms of why this issue speaks to me. Number one, I'm a patient. Louis Holmes isn't here. He's my doctor. He's my fourth doctor in 15 years I've been seeing a grown-up doctor. So, when I was at a meeting and he started making noise about being unhappy and leaving, it got my attention. No, I mean, in all seriousness, we're all patients and we all want providers. Secondly, I'm an ER physician. Every patient I see is referred to someone for follow-up. Every single patient. Tomorrow I'm going to work, every patient I see who leaves the department will be referred to somebody for follow-up. And when I refer a patient to Dr. Hadi, I mean, when I say to a patient, who's your primary care doctor, who are you going to follow up with? They say Dr. Hadi, I just get this nice warm feeling inside, because I know what they're going to get. You know what they get. It's really good. And I would say that about all of my primary care, and specialty care colleagues. We're really fortunate in this community to have a strong physician network, and it pains me to see it shaken up a bit. As a hospital administrator, there's value in our physician network. That's where healthcare is going. Our old mission was take care of the sick and injured. our new mission is take care of your community. And that means when you're not sick and injured, when you're well, when you need routine care, preventive care, we are committed to caring for you. So that's my level of commitment. I'm committed, and we are committed, to making sure there are enough providers in this community, specialty and primary care for us all. That's the good news. The bad news, there's going to be some turbulence. And myself and Dr. Wolfman have visited with all the physicians who are leaving, and encouraged them to stay, and what can we do to get you to stay. But we're going to lose some physicians. There's no question about it. We're looking at our manpower. I'm working with Peter Aguirre. He's our vice president of the practices. He has a good sense of what our capacity is and where our capacity is, and we're going to see how much horsepower we have, and do our best to make sure that we're able to care for our community.
I hate to say this, but how can you care for the community if you are getting rid of doctors? I don't, isn't a hospital supposed to have doctors?
I totally understand what you're saying, and we are committed to having doctors, and we're going to need to have doctors, and yes, no, I understand what you're saying. Yes.
Patrick?
I'm Patrick Stein. I've been a doctor at Porter. I've been a patient at Porter. I've served on her boards. What we're seeing here is someone who has literally lost a family member, Naomi Howdy. And I'm going to lose her too. And it's not an easy time. But it's a reminder to everyone here that it's family values that we need at Porter. They have been a part of the Porter scene since I got here. If you want to evaluate a medical system, to know how patients will be treated, look at how the staff treats each other. It's your clearest indication of what the chemistry is. And if it's a place you'll go to for efficient service only, or a place where you'll go with trust and hope and all the things that we carry with us for ourselves and our families. That was lost for a while. We had a lousy CEO, and at times we had compliance by board members and staff members who did not resist this change. I am greatly encouraged by Stephen and Fred and their clear, concise messages about what the next steps will be. I'm delighted that the community was aroused by this. You went to the barricades, and I salute you. And you probably helped pull our bacon out of the fire. I would ask that we be patient, that we give Fred, and Stephen, and the board room to work. By many standards, their response has been quick. Boards tend not to move quickly, and I compliment the board for their efficient action. They acted like surgeons. They saw the problem. They recognized that the cause of the problem could be replaced. Cut it out. And you did. And I'm grateful.
This is not a question or even a comment, but merely an observation that there are a lot of people standing at the back, and I see at least a few empty chairs around. And so perhaps if there's an empty chair, you can hold up your hand, then there can be a lottery.
Thanks, Frank. There are 3 here, I see. And we could surrender ours too, Mo, couldn't we?
Yeah, somebody can come sit here if they'd like. I'll move mine.
Ann.
Here.
Ann Leandra, Middlebury. I am devastated. I just learned.
I just learned 5 minutes ago from Connie Miller that my physician is leaving. And let me tell you, I am indescribably upset. I had an appointment 2 weeks ago and was told we couldn't discuss anything, so we didn't. But if I ran into her on the street, we could have a chat. I haven't. I'm going to try and snag her at the end of the meeting. As much as that upsets me, and the fact that it took my husband, who had been ill for a decade, over 7 months to find physicians to take care of us after our physician retired, and this was in 2009, where can I go to be seen by an internist? I cannot believe that I just heard Fred say internal medicine is closing.
Fred,
Yes.
did you mean closed in terms of no new patients, or the door is sealed shut?
The office, the Porter Internal Medicine office, which is in the physician's building on campus, the brick building, it's currently in the downstairs floor, that office is closing. Actually, Porter ENT, ear, nose, and throat, is moving in there. You know, so we have Naomi and Brad to relocate. No, our Department of Internal Medicine has taken a huge hit in the last 6 months. And Ann, I mean, you know my history with internal medicine. I mean, we had a powerhouse department, Bob, Dave Henderson, Al Covey, and Ted Collier. They were stalwarts of our medical staff for 30 years. And when they retired, it was hard to replace them. Finding primary care internal medicine doctors, we refer to them as hen's teeth. They're hard to find. And we worked very hard and recruited a really great group, and they have been leaving. You know, Gretchen Guy Michaels left early in the fall. Lynn Wilkinson and Cynthia Smith are leaving. Naomi's leaving. We lost one of our mid-levels. So yes, there has been a considerable exodus. And, you know, that's what we're faced with. And it's going to be a challenge, for sure. And we need to have high-level conversations between the medical staff, the board, the community, and talk about the future of internal medicine and figure out our road forward. I'm sorry, Ann.
Yes. Lucy McKeon from Cornwall. I have a couple of questions, and I would like to know from the board what their philosophy of primary care is. The impression has been that it's pretty much interchangeable who one goes to, that they can be seen very efficiently and very quickly, that they can be appointed through this central agency that you have without actually talking to anybody in the office, that you don't need to consult with the providers to see whether they're going to be double booked and stuffed in the afternoon. I'd like to know that, and I'd also like to know what's going to happen to the many, many internal medicine patients that are no longer going to be seen. Where are they going to go?
Well, I can talk to the general philosophy. I can't talk to the management decisions because we don't make those decisions. But our philosophy is that primary care is our backbone. That we build from that. So our focus is clearly on making sure that that's a strong network. Maybe Fred or Peter could speak to some of the other issues.
I want to hear from the board.
We don't.
I really want to know what the board is thinking, because the way that this was approached with the quite profound pay cuts made it seem like internal medicine family practice was not very important.
That's not at all what the impetus behind those changes were about. The way the world is right now, primary care is the focus of an organization of this caliber. That's how we build. That's how we build. And there was no backhanded movement here to try to erase that number or do anything like that. The management decisions that you're talking about are different from the organizational strategy. The strategy that we've always had is that primary care is our backbone. So I can't speak to the other pieces because we don't drive that, okay? Like, I mean, Fred could possibly add something to that.
So where does everybody go?
Yeah.
Well, you know, again, it's our job to assess our horsepower, see what our capacity is, and then I have a meeting, I'm in ER tomorrow, we have a meeting on Friday to talk about how do we facilitate folks getting care. I don't have a great answer.
Sure. I have 3 questions. I'm Millard Cox from Riverton. I'd like to know if the health care benefits are going to be restored to the part-time workers. I'd like to know if the nurses who were laid off are going to be reinstated. And I'd like to know if the effort to break the teachers, or the nurses union is going to continue.
I think those are all 3 minutes. Okay. Health benefits. The short answer is no. You know, the longer answer is, I was in the room when these decisions were made. I personally, actually, as of the first year, lost my benefit eligibility, so I know firsthand. I am a physician and I can afford to buy insurance, but I have a sense of what this means. It was the right thing to do. It was not rolled out the way that I would have liked to have seen it rolled out. It could have been rolled out in an incremental fashion, in a more supportive way, in a more gradual way. You know, but this is where the industry's going. I looked for jobs myself this winter. I found plenty of half-time jobs. None of them would provide me with benefits. This is part of the ongoing downward pressure that we need to put on expenses, and it's painful. I have friends and colleagues who have lost their health benefits. I know personally what it feels like to work here 25 years and lose your benefits. But we're not going to walk that back. I think we feel it's the right thing. It was the right move.
How can it be the right thing to do?
Well,
I don't understand how it's right.
Well, you have to balance what's best for the organization. What will guide my decisions, all my decisions, is what's best for PMC and what's best for our patients. And if we want to be here for 91 more years, we are going to need to make tough decisions. And there will be folks who lose things, and that will be painful. And I feel badly about that on a personal level, but we have to do what's right for the greater organization. The second question, hiring back nurses. So that's enough. We're not, you know, we laid off some folks through the fall. And again, we're not going to walk that back. These were people that I worked with and know for years. It's hard, painful. But again, we need to improve our financial performance. Patrick spoke to that. Everyone, we can argue about the 340B and how you book it and that kind of thing. Everyone who's smart, who's looked at our numbers, agrees we need to improve our financial performance. The only thing we disagree about is how quickly and how bad, exactly how serious the problem is. But everyone agrees we need to improve it. Our greatest expense is labor. We're going to have to continue tight control of our labor force. And then the last question was, I believe, to the union. And I just want to say, I talked to Maureen on Friday a week ago. On Saturday, one of my first calls was to our Vice President of Human Resources, Dave Fuller. And I said, Dave, we have got to reset our relationship with our union. This is a front burner issue. For the simple reasons that, number one, they're employees and they need to be valued and respected. Number two, we share a common vision. The union and our nurses want great patient care, and we want great patient care. And we all need to spend as much time and energy focused on patient care and less time sitting in meetings and bickering, so that we can move forward and do the hard work that we need to do. So I've had 2 quick meetings with our nurses union. We had a longer meeting yesterday. They have appropriately said, taken a cautious approach and said, Fred, we've heard this stuff before, and you're going to need to walk the walk to earn our trust. And I respect that. I think that's a thoughtful and respectful response from them. But I accept that challenge, and I'm hoping we can improve our relationship and spend our energy on patient care.
I'm Fred Greenman, and I've been a patient in the hospital. And you talk about walking the walk. Do you think the management team that you presently have is capable of listening to your vision? And if not, are you ready to walk the walk?
Yes. Yes and yes. So, some of my management team I've known for years and years and years. And some of them I've known for 10 days. I need some time to assess their skills. Really. Even the ones I've known for years, it's a different sort of relationship. Working side by side versus them being my direct report. So, it's going to take some number of weeks for me to assess my team and make sure I have the right folks in the right places. With that said, I don't have any flashing red lights. I have confidence in these people. I trust them. Yes.
I hope they earn your trust.
They will. I think they will.
Tim? Tim Cope, retired family physician, practiced in Middlebury for 40 years. From 1980 to 1985, I was the chair of the professional recruitment part of Porter Hospital, and during that time, I recruited half the medical staff. Everything from anesthesiology to pediatrics. It takes a long time to recruit people. Primary care, that is family physicians, were particularly difficult to recruit. I tried to retire in 2009 and was unable to find anybody to replace me, so I had to wait till 2010 to retire. Do we have some kind of time frame that we're aiming for to replace physicians who are leaving?
So the short answer is not this moment. Again, I'll be meeting with our practice management group Friday, and we'll be talking about this issue, figuring out how big is our patient panel, how much capacity do we have, do we need to recruit? If so, what sort of positions and for where?
Go ahead.
But I agree, Tim, I agree, it does take time. And that's why I'm prepping the crowd for turbulence. This is not going to be a quick fix. Yes.
Another, I guess it's more of a statement than a question. I ran my own practice for 21 years before I was bought by Porter. And during that time, 20% of our patients were on Medicaid. And at that time, Medicaid paid 40 cents out of every dollar that I charged. So if we're trying to improve the financial picture of the hospital, how are we going to do it when we have a lot of Medicaid patients and we're being paid 40 cents on the dollar?
Go ahead. So, we need to become more efficient. And we can't fix the Medicaid payment rate. We're just going to need to run more efficiently.
I guess I would say that in my office, 50 to 55% of my income was for overhead, and that was considered extremely efficient. 40 cents on the dollar doesn't even get close to 50 or 50%. It doesn't matter how efficient you are, you're not going to get there.
It's one of our challenges, for sure.
Yes.
Barbara Greenwood from Cornwall. I'm a Porter internal medicine patient. I have a follow-up question for you, Dr.
Yes.
Kniffen. Is it your plan that eventually those of us who find ourselves without a position will have one in the Porter system? And pending your recruiting those,
Yes.
What are you going to do? Will you be bringing in locums, or what's the future look like?
I don't have a detailed plan. It is my plan that yes.
Here's my plan to
I'm looking at my
Yes.
VP of the practices, and our plan is we need to care for our community. So we need to figure this out. Do you want to add anything to that, Peter?
I think to give Fred a little bit of credit, because, just from the moment he got here.
Excuse me. Stand up for this, yeah.
Sorry. From when Fred started last week, we tried to put the brakes on some of the things that were happening, and so it was just in the past day, really, in preparation for this meeting, that we were trying to have an answer, because we knew that this question would come up. We know that we don't know everything right now, but we know that we owe you an answer. And Fred has worked very hard to talk with everybody involved, and it sort of shed a fresh set of eyes on this, because he wasn't in the trenches with all of this changes going on. So he's had discussions with physicians, and we've really talked about, from a vision perspective, here are some of the possibilities. Let's work through the list of those, and that's what he's talking about. So I just want to give him some credit for really taking this on and spending quite a bit of time with us trying to resolve this in the best way for the community. So we don't have answers, but I can tell you it's not for, we have a lot of questions that we want to answer. If you just don't want to.
We need to have answers for you in short order.
We'll do as quickly as we can.
Yes, sir.
George Belrose from Waybridge. This is a question for Fred. Given all the challenges facing small community hospitals, financial pressures, staffing pressures, what are the pros and cons of a closer affiliation with UVM Med Center? I mean, in the past, there's been talk of having their services come down.
Okay, sure, sure.
Is that a solution?
Yep. So the issue's affiliation, and it's a chronically hot topic. And I've really evolved on this topic. I think, George, if you'd asked me that 15 years ago, I would have said, heck no, I won't go. And I've really reframed it to what's best for Porter Medical Center and what is best for our community. In other words, if staying independent is going to cause us so much financial strain that we can't afford a robust primary care network, that we can't afford to have specialty care, that we can't afford to build a medical office building, we can't afford the technology to keep up with the times, then maybe we should affiliate. The flip side is, if we can make it on our own and provide the services that you all need and want, then why would we affiliate? And then to get more specific, we are working on a strategic plan with a company called Stroudwater. And that plan is supposed to give us a work product that will show us what our future looks like to the best of predictability in 3 to 5 years if we go alone. And it will show us our path, what we will look like in 3 to 5 years if we were to have some sort of affiliation arrangement with some other entity. And then the board and the medical staff and community will look at that, discuss it, weigh the pros and cons, and make some decisions. So that process is in place. But I want to be clear, the decision to affiliate has not been made. The decision that has been made is to look at our options, weigh the pros and cons, and make a decision. And I assume that will happen in the next several years.
Mike? To our board chair, if you consider affiliation, will this be something that the board will bring to the community, or will it be done in secret?
Oh, no, we would absolutely share this with the community. I mean, we're beginning that process right now to get the information to begin to start to understand those paths that Fred is talking about, but this will absolutely be a conversation that comes outside of the hospital and out of the boardroom. It's too important to everybody here.
it's just a suggestion. This is not the first time we've been through this dilemma. Those of us who've been around here for a few years vividly recall in the 60s where we had the entire medical staff retiring. We didn't know what we were going to do. And somehow, through osmosis or some very good marketing program, we were able to recruit Pat Stein, Bob LaFiandra, Tim Cope, Bill Fifield, Bob Benman, P.J. Holm, a whole array of really outstanding people who became the mainstay of this institution. And my recommendation to you is maybe get those who are still with us together and find out what it was that attracted them. Granted, times have changed, but there was something that brought them to a college town where the rent on the property is $1 a year, and it's a college environment. It has wonderful things to offer. That's why we're all here. That's why we love this place. And if somehow we can get that word into the residency programs, then we're going to get some people that are going to take a look at this.
Thanks, Steve.
Hi, Dina Greenman, Cornwall. I have just more of like a statement than a question or a favor. I'd really like a promise that going forward, I can count on what I'm being told from the board and the hospital is the real story. I feel like there were two narratives going on at the same time. I was somewhat privy to both. And I feel like in the press, over many months, even though the last maybe 2 weeks or so, there has been a lot more forthcoming from Angela Lynn and John Flowers and other letters. Previous to that, there was just Lynn Boggs' letter of platitudes, Maureen's letter of not
Hope.
much substance.
Miss Hope.
No offense, but
Yeah.
hope or
Yeah.
whatever. But that $11 million scary number was out there. And when anyone asked what's happening, a lot of doctors are leaving. The line was not that many. A couple are retiring. Some people have personal issues. Only a couple don't like their contracts. And it was very, in my opinion, disingenuous and verging on dishonest. And really, many, many people did not know what was going on in that hospital. And only those who seemed to have friends or loved ones who were very greatly suffering to the point that they wanted to leave if something didn't change. Those were the only folks that really knew. And I want to know that it doesn't take the community instigating the press to help get the word out on the real story. I want to know I'm being told the real story so that everyone knows. So I'm going to ask that.
Yep, I hear you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. And, you know, I think Patrick alluded to the fact that the message wasn't exactly the way it should have been messaged, and we apologize for that. I mean, the reality is the reality, but the way it was told, the story wasn't told in the proper way, and we absolutely understand that. So thank you for sharing that.
And I'll add, I promise.
Thank you.
And, you know, I think we burned some trust this fall, and that's painful, and it's hard to earn. And I ask for your forgiveness, and we will work hard to earn it back.
You may get too much information, but that's okay.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said you may get too much information, but maybe that's okay
Never
too.
too much.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, I'm Ken Spencer. I'm a nurse at Porter and an echocardiographer. Since we're talking so much about money and Porter having problems, it's a little difficult for nurses sometimes to have this conversation because we're not privy to all the choices that are being made and the way money is being spent. But I was hoping to look for a couple opportunities to maybe save some money. But when you add up the amount of money we're saving by cutting part-time benefits or laying off a few people, I'd like to point out some places where I feel like we may have spent money erroneously over this past period of time. The nurses were creating a union when I came, and they were expressing to me that they were creating a union to find a voice at Porter Hospital, which they did not have. They felt unrespected and unlistened to. This past administration, the SLT, the senior leadership team, refused to speak to nurses, period. The doors were locked. Sounds pretty adversarial. Unfortunately, though, it was before this senior leadership, this current group, and the previous group that the problem started. I know Porter spent lots of money on consultants to try to prevent the union from happening in the first place. I don't know how much money that was, 40,000? 110,000 to prevent the union. Now, I think we might all agree that the union has been side by side with Fred and the current administration about the solution to this most recent problem. I don't think the union people are a real problem, and I don't think the union people want to be paid much more, but I think they want some protections and they want a voice and they want to be respected. So I'm really happy to hear Fred saying that. We must have spent hundreds of thousands on legal fees negotiating that first contract, the union contract. And I know we continue to spend enormous amounts of money on legal fees, putting lawyers between the union members and management. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know that's what we couldn't speak to managers without lawyers present, and this still is going on. The good news is we did speak to Fred recently and Karen. We had a great meeting. No lawyers were there. We saved some money. We made some headway. We came along. But, you know, our union contract is going to be renegotiated soon. The first thing we started fighting about with the lawyers and administration over the last contract was, I think, the preamble, where the union wrote something just horrific, like, we'd like to practice evidence-based medicine to best serve the community members of Porter. And that was a non-starter. Came out of the contract right away. And that was the beginning of, how many months?
February to December.
There were 10 months of paying for lawyers to be sitting there every day arguing with us about every little piece of the union contract. So maybe if we have a pretty good contract now, and our union contract has to be renegotiated, we don't have to do it with lawyers. That might save us some money. I think we could work with Fred and the new team just great. But if anybody on the board or the administration can talk a little bit more, beyond what Fred said about saying to Dave Fuller we have to repair, if there's any real practical ideas you have for bringing the union in as opposed to resisting the nurses union, perhaps putting a nurse on the board, perhaps having nurses who aren't just nurse managers, but having nurses in a management team. Anything practical you think of so we can stop the adversarial legal-based system and to go forward in the spirit of cooperation, I'd love to hear about it, or just plant that seed.
I'll consider the seed planted, okay? We'll have some conversations.
I'm available.
Okay, thank you.
Thoughts or questions? Matt?
Matt Hoffman. You mentioned 3 points of your leadership that sound an awful lot like a good strategic vision, for the business, for the...
Can't hear you, man, I'm sorry.
Pardon me, I'll speak up more articulately. You mentioned 3 points that were central to your strategic vision for the business and how that might affect in the sort of medium to long term, 3 to 5 to 10 years. And they're all good, and I appreciate and respect and value your 3 points. However, the sort of sudden change in leadership, the very nature of an interim CEO, is one that implies a bit of a crisis. And certainly the 2.2 month reserve balance, this is not a whole lot of runway to exercise things like patience and to give you time.
Right.
They imply a need for some kind of a tactical action and I guess to use your parlance of the triage. And so I was hoping you could speak a little bit to what those things might be.
Thank you. So, and that's a great point. So, my message is very 30,000-foot, overreaching, broad, but you're absolutely right. And I have my CFO here to, the day I walk in the door, we'll have conversations and I'll say, it's going to be okay. And when I say that, it's a very broad, it's going to be okay. We're open for business today, we're going to be open for business tomorrow, we'll be open for business next week. We're going to work out this position, leaving the community thing. It's going to be okay. But you're absolutely right. A lot, we refer to as hitting pause. I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 weeks ago, I was just minding my own business, honestly, seeing patients in the ER, but there was a fair bit of turmoil and a number of projects that are aimed at improving patient care and creating efficiencies, but also saving money. We hit the pause on them. And we know, in fact, we've already started some of them back up. And we know we need to keep moving forward. We're going to keep a lot of the projects that we have going, moving forward, but we're going to change the style. And you asked for a specific one, I will say the physician contracts. It's been a bit of a flashpoint. And I'm going to speak in very general terms, so just calm down, guys. And I would ask my physician colleagues to pipe in if I've got this all wrong. But, traditionally here, we paid physicians on salary. And, what we're looking to do is move them to a model where a chunk of their pay is salary, and then some of it's based on productivity and quality measures. When I talk to physicians individually and in groups, they've expressed a willingness to move forward with this. They get it. They understand that that's what's happening out there in the rest of the world. They understand the financial pressures. They want a fair deal. They get it. But, we tried, or this fall, the approach taken was, let's do 35 docs at once. Let's do half of our employed providers all at once, from different specialties, with different needs. And it's too much too fast. We need to slow it down. I've talked to Peter about this, sent the email out to the docs this week. We're going to circle back around and work on this project. We're going to take whatever time it takes. And we're going to break this down into bites we can chew and digest. And go group by group or individual by individual. There'll be give and take, opportunity for conversation. And I think we can work this out. And, I'm going to steal from Peter a bit in terms of what this is all about. It's about alignment. And when I first heard that from Peter, I thought, sounds like administration speak. But, let's say the average physician, is seeing 16 patients a day. Again, I'm just throwing out some numbers. And they're on salary. And if they say 14 patients, they get the same salary. If they say 18 patients that day, they get the same salary. Just imagine if they are seeing 14 patients, they're a little bit at risk. Not a lot, but a bit. And if you say 18, they're incentivized. They're rewarded. It's a win-win-win. Potentially, it's a win for the physicians if we do this right. It incentivizes them and offers them an opportunity or a reward. It's a win for Porter Medical Center. It helps our bottom line. But here, who gets the big win? You guys, patients. Okay? Just think, my vision of our medical group is that there's a great big sucking sound. That when you're sick or injured, you pick up the phone and you engage the porter and we pull you in. We remove the barriers. We pull you into the system. You come in to see your primary care doctor, you need a referral to OBGYN, we make that happen for you before you leave the office. You need to go to ortho, we make that happen. It's a little dreamy, but that's the vision. And if we can do that, everybody wins. And experts in how to pay providers say that this is a key component. So I think if we do it right, we can get this done, and it will be a winning scenario. And that's an example of something that we need to move forward on.
Bill?
Joel Miller. Fred,
I don't know.
I'm wondering
Two bills.
how you can square, one can square, pushing the physicians.
Yeah.
They're not loafing.
No.
They're busy.
Yes.
Push them to see more people. How does that square with the desire for quality outcomes? It seems to me they're mutually exclusive. It takes time for a physician to sit with the patient and really understand them.
Great. So, you know, in all these systems that are pushing providers for efficiency, you need to continue to measure quality so that you make sure you maintain quality. So you're right, it's a balance. And we value both, and we're going to need to make sure we preserve both.
Bill?
Yeah, Bill Fifield, retired physician. My comment very much echoed what the last speaker said, but I'm concerned about quality. And if, as a family physician, you see a patient with an earache, or you see a patient with a routine hypertension, recheck is doing fine, is having no symptoms, and they need refills, you can see 4 patients an hour without much of any problem. But if you see an elderly patient who has hypertension, heart disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, and is depressed, there's no way you can do a quality evaluation and management of that patient in 15 or 20 minutes. It just cannot happen. So I guess I take issue, Fred, a little bit with the fact that the patient wins in this scenario. I think sometimes the patient may not win.
Max Kraus. Fred, you make a lot of sense. Maybe this is out of order, but I assume that Porter will now be looking for a full-time permanent CEO.
Yes.
Will you be a candidate? And to the board, what is the process? And will you include members of the community and members of the nurses union in your CEO search rather than having it a closed board event?
I'll take the first half and get the second half. So, thank you. That's very kind. But probably not. My passion is ER. That's where I'd like to finish my career. And I think for Porter's sake, you know, there are people out there who have passion for this work. I think there's somebody out there who, in fact, I think there's many people out there who love to be hospital chief executives. They would come to this community, they would say, this is the best place I could ever want to live, best place I could ever want to work, best place I could ever go and be a patient. They would learn the values and embrace the values in our community, get to know our workforce, settle in, and take us forward. And when we find that person, back to the basement. Maureen.
That was our agreement with Fred. We're not even certain where that process is going to go yet. I mean, this has been 10 days of a lot of transition. So at this point, our thoughts are we're going to let it settle down a little bit, and we'll take the time to think about what we are looking for the future. But the other point I was going to make is we're going to make that process as inclusive as possible. And our last process was actually very inclusive, and we invited a lot of Porter to be involved in it. And our consultants were not happy with some of the steps we took. And they said, no, you never do that. And we were like, no, we think this is what Porter deserves. So we were pretty open about that last time, and we feel like we're going to do something similar this time, and we'll figure out how we manage our committee and who's on our committee, but we're not quite sure what the process is yet, or what the candidate, or what we're looking for. So, okay.
Marty Peters. I live in Leicester, which is at the southern end of the draw for people who come to Porter.
Yes.
And my wife and I were fortunate enough when we called, I don't know how many years ago, to make an appointment with Dr. The one remaining internist. He was available, and we have been with him ever since. I'm going to ask you a question, sir, about the short term.
Yes.
Because the short term is a real problem. You have a lot of people, some in this room, some really don't know anything other than what they've read in the paper. They're going to call up, oh no, she's not here, he's not here. The pediatrician we used is not here. In the short term, I think that the hospital medical center is facing a very important financial problem. which hopefully will only be a short term. But it seems to me that we really don't have the time to do this global search. I don't know where you're going to get people in the short term, but it's really going to hurt, I'm afraid.
That's clearly a theme tonight, and I understand what you're saying. It's going to need to be a front burner issue. Yes.
Patrick?
I have an assignment for everyone here. We just asked Fred if he can make soup from straw. He said he's going to try. An important ingredient in the short-term and long-term solutions for Porter is for us to be better patients, to be more self-aware, self-informed, more forgiving. We're going to have more nurse practitioners and physician assistants in whatever mix they can generate at a reasonable cost for us. We're not going to be able to weep in our car before we go in, because we're not going to see Naomi. We're going to see an associate or someone we didn't know yet. We have to have our histories together. We have to have evidence that we have tried to promote our own health. And that's going to be part of what saves Porter. So we're going to have to change our expectation as consumers. I did a locums workout in Silver City, New Mexico. 90% of the primary care delivered in this giant county was from PAs and nurse practitioners. 90%. At the Rutland practice in Mid-Vermont ENT, by the way, Fred, I'm looking for work. They have 2 doctors and 2 physician assistants who see the same number of patients. They just don't operate. Get used to it. It's coming. And frankly, many of those PAs and nurse practitioners are more humanistic than doctors. They truly care about you, and they'll call the next day to see how you're doing. So the scope of primary care especially is going to change. Don't resist it. Find out how you can participate, because the overall survival quotient here for our service area is if we're in better health, Porter will do better. If we're in poorer health, if we abuse ourselves, if we are inattentive to our health needs, we'll be very expensive to take care of, and the hospital will be more stressed. So this is what's coming. I'm disappointed that Fred has not agreed to run for president. Of all of us, I'm delighted that he has had his eyes on the crown and now gets his chance. We couldn't be in better hands.
Thank you.
Frank.
Frank Winkler, Middlebury. I'd like to return to this issue of physicians being compensated in part based on efficiency and quality. Quality, was that the...
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, a couple of people have spoken to the efficiency. If a physician is seeing 18 people a day instead of 14 people a day, either the physician is working a longer day or each patient is getting less time. There's really no other way of doing this arithmetic that I can think of. And as Bill Fifield gave us with a very clear example, sometimes that patient is going to need a little extra time, and if it's not there, either the physician is going to end up with a black mark against his or her name because you fell down on your quota today, or the patient is going to get short shrift, or I'm not going to get the follow-up phone call the next day because again everything is on the clock. So that's part of it. But the other part of my question is, how do you measure quality?
Well.
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 Yes.
Where's my quality expert? No. So measuring quality, you know, is it's a nationwide issue. Everyone measures quality. It's hard to do. It is disputed, you know, and physicians, you know, we argue about how to measure quality. We actually try and engage the physicians to help us tell us what would be helpful things to measure. But we have a quality department. We have Dr. Carrie Wolfman. And Dr. Wolfman is our Chief Medical Officer. She is accountable for quality and patient safety. She works with Mary Ann Collins, who runs our quality department. We have a quality dashboard. We look at metrics from the offices, from Helen Porter, from the acute care. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
It's Marianne Bruno.
Yes.
Now, not Collins.
Yep.
And I've been in this role for 3 months. Fred's partly responsible for bringing me over to the dark side. I didn't quite know what I was getting into. And what has happened in the last 3 months has been to focus a lot on a variety of things, and some on quality. We have a lot more that we need to do to focus on quality. We're working to establish better ways of measuring quality. I'll give you an example of one thing I would like to instill sooner than later is a way to have patient participation in the quality of their care immediately at the time that they receive it. So that I think would help us with our patient satisfaction. We now use the Press-Feeney surveys, which sometimes come back 3 months later, and sometimes we only have a pool of maybe 5 comments and try to come up with a metric from that. It's not valid, really. So we're hoping to find better ways to measure quality. We have ways to measure quality through our electronic health record, and some of those ways are not perfected yet. We're working with that system to try to enter and then extract information better, but we have a ways to go with that, in my opinion. Quite a ways to go, but we're going to use it and see if we can make it work better.
Did that answer your question?
You have a question for me, Ben?
Oh, Frank, you want to follow up?
First of all, I hope that you're not going to try to measure quality by some kind of long and painful survey that gets sent out to every patient. But this is going to come across as facetious, and I guess it really is. But and you know, suppose in the restaurant business, one sort of gets you know, an informal measure of the quality of service and the food is the amount of tip that the patron leaves at the end of the meal. And so maybe there ought to be a tip jar. There
you go.
That would solve more than one problem.
Right, exactly. Yeah, help the finances too. There you go.
And I did not address your question about quality that's not measurable. And I definitely think we need to pay more attention to that. And I think there's a very fine balance between asking doctors to see a full day of patients, that's to be defined, and taking, you know, an hour with each patient. There's the balance between that, and we need to provide quality care. And a lot of that depends upon listening to the patient. The patient will tell us what they need, and we need to pay attention. Ben?
Ben Rosenberg, I mentioned previously, I'm a board member and the founder of Champlain Valley Orthopedics. I want to just speak to that issue of physicians seeing patients. And this is a bit of information, I think, for the community in this room. We've been talking as if the physician and the patient is the only encounter that happens. And to some extent, that's true. It's a precious and sacred relationship between the healer, provider, physician, whatever you want to call that person, and the patient. But what has to be appreciated, critically important, is that, and it's going to get more important and more common as we move forward, is that encounter is the product of a team of people that work so that encounter happens efficiently and with high quality. Now, it is a fact that a physician can see patients more efficiently if he or she has the information that he or she needs at hand. They can access the records and, for example, referral information in my case, or the patient complaints, if that is done in an efficient manner, and that can be done, a lot of that can be done by somebody other than the physician, and that can save time. It can also, if that patient then needs to be referred to for some lab tests or for an x-ray study or to a specialist, if that process is done efficiently, it can cut down on the face-to-face time, which on the whole seems like a loss, but if that process of getting the care that's needed is done efficiently and with high quality, it can be better for the patient. And that's what it's all about. And I want to follow that up with one thing. We can't do that as physicians, and there's been a lot of talk about physicians and how important we are and the loss of physicians, and listen, I'm a physician, I certainly agree with that. But I've got to say one thing. It's two things, really. It's a team approach, and the most important person in the team besides the physician is the nurse. And so it's important that we value our nurses, both in our offices and critically in the hospital. Because we've been hearing about this shortage of physicians, we haven't been hearing so much about the shortage of nurses. And the respect that Fred used as his number one point will need to be extended to our nursing staff if we're going to be successful in this venture.
That brings up, I'm Anza Armstrong, I've been a nurse at Porter for 37 years. Brings up what I wanted to mention about your statement that you don't plan to make any changes in terms of the changes that have already been made in terms of staffing. And I think that a lot of nurses believe that some of those changes were made hastily and in error without a lot of input from the people who are working in the offices and with the patients. And I'm wondering if there's a chance of that being reevaluated.
Well, I mean, we are reevaluating safety on an ongoing basis. And when we identify things that are unsafe, or when people bring safety concerns to us, we will, in fact, we won't even wait. We are out looking for them. We will need to address them. So, you know, if the question is, are we going to rehire the whatever nurses, 10 nurses, you know, who were laid off, that would be no. But if the question is, gosh, you know, there's a safety concern here, or there's a safety concern there, that's something we want to hear about. We want to talk about it. We want to look at it. I have my, you know, if it's on our Med-Surg Q unit, I have our subject matter expert, Gene Bauman, our nurse manager there, and Karen, our CNO, look at that. If it's in the offices, you know, we have our office folks look at it. So those will be looked at individually, I guess is how I would answer that, Anza.
But it's not just about safety, it's also about what Ed was
The
talking
efficiency
about.
piece. Yep. Right. Yep, yes. So there are a number of decisions that have been made in the last few months that we're in the process of evaluating.
Millard Cox, Ripton. I just have two more questions. One of them has to do with the composition of the board itself. I'm not asking for a negative reason. I'd like to commend the board for the changes that they've made. Personally, to me, it's very important that that happened. But I'd like to know how the board is composed, how people are chosen or appointed or enter the board, and how representative they are of the entire county. For instance, how many seats are designated for Middlebury College representation, for example. And my other question is, I'd like to know the level of compensation that has been paid to the most recent CEO.
I can take that one first. We, as with every executive, we had a contract that she signed, as most executives have, and we honored the terms of her contract when she left, and that's all we did. There was no additional money paid.
No, but I mean, how much was the level of compensation?
What was her level of compensation? $320, I believe.
Board composition?
Board, I'll let Peter, our governance chair, talk to the board issues.
So our bylaws, the way it's set up is the governance committee makes recommendations to the full board. Oops, sorry. Our governance committee makes recommendations to the full board for membership on the committee. Full board members are elected for 3-year terms, for a maximum of 3 3-year terms, and they're elected at this annual meeting. There have been occasions where board members have stepped down for a variety of reasons, and the board has the authority and the obligation to appoint members on an interim basis. We'll talk about 2 of them tonight. But basically the process is the governance committee, which is made up of 5 members of the board, puts names forward. We do research on individuals, and we make recommendations to the board. The board in turn votes on those members, those prospective members, those nominees, and it's brought to the membership vote once a year. As far as how we go about finding community members, looking for community members, we reach out to every person that we can think of for who would make good board members. To be honest with you, it's been a trial at times. We've had difficulty finding board members at times that are willing to put in the level of effort that I hope you all can appreciate it takes to be on the Porter Hospital Board. As far as our compensation, 0. So we're always looking for board members. As far as what we look for, we try to balance the board between physicians, business members, people that have experience in the healthcare industry, people that have general financial experience, like Patrick and Sivan. So we look for a very broad-based board to be able to bring all types of voices to the table. As far as geographic, we try to select members from our entire service area, but it depends on who's available and who's willing to sit. Middlebury College has 3 appointees to the board. That's a function of our bylaws and a deal that was struck probably 90 years ago when the college gave the land to Porter to establish the hospital.
I have a quick question. It's in reference to the makeup of the board. I know we're not discussing, because of other aspects, the suggestion that the board should shrink in number. Could you tell us a bit about what the thinking was over the last year of shrinking the board?
Sure, thank you for asking that. I was going to actually touch on it a little bit later, but I'll jump into it now since the question was asked. To give you a little bit of background, prior to 2013, there was actually three very distinct boards, governance boards that ran Porter Medical Center as a whole. There was a Porter Medical Center board, there was a Porter Hospital board, and then there was a Helen Porter board. There were a couple of smaller subset boards, but those were the 3 main ones. There's a lot of overlap between those boards. Members serving on different committees, and there were people that were having board meetings 2 to 3 times a week. We had issues were identified where it was difficult to communicate between the 3 entities. Those entities really need to work together, and we identified communication issues of those entities, all those boards communicating well. So through a very deliberative process that Bill Townsend led us through as board chair at the time, we looked at our board structure, we looked at our committee structure, and the solution we came up with was to basically establish 3 mirror boards. We couldn't divest those three corporations, but we established 3 mirror boards, where basically all 3 governance bodies were the same people. At the time, prior to that creation of the mirror boards, Porter Medical Center Board had 16 members, the hospital board had 15 members, and Helen Porter Board had 13 members. Rather than picking a number, 16, 19, we elected at that time, we had some very valuable people on the board, we elected at that time to merge all the boards and keep everyone that was interested in serving on those mirror boards. That's how we got to 22. We rewrote the bylaws at the time from Porter Medical Center to set the number at 22. But if you read through the bylaws, there's also a line in there that says we're going to reevaluate this as we move forward and figure out what the right number is for the board. Through the last 6 months, 8 months, the governance committee has been charged with looking at whether we have the right number of people on the board. Read a lot of articles. We've talked with governance consultants about the right number of people that on a large board. We've polled the other hospitals around Vermont. Just for reference, I looked at all the hospitals in Vermont, and it ranges from 12 board members to 19 board members. So we're definitely on the heavy end. So we looked at that, and we came to the consensus that we would drop down to 19 members, and that was through attrition. 3 members are leaving the board; their terms are up tonight. So we decided on 19 was a good number based on what we felt our responsibilities are and how we would best staff the committees, the standing committees that we had. If I could digress just a minute as far as the bylaw amendments and the warning, we're not going to be voting on amendments to the bylaws tonight. Unfortunately, the bylaws weren't posted to the website where the postcard invitation that went out to the members said they would be, so therefore they weren't on there for the 10 days in advance. We feel that it's more important that we get it right, that we warned the bylaws in an appropriate manner, give the membership the appropriate time to review those changes in the bylaws prior to a vote. So the board has elected to not bring that up for a vote tonight. So we'll basically be sticking with the same bylaws that have been in place. Those bylaws are, however, on the website. I encourage you to read through them. I think if you look through the amendments, we may have a debate on how many board members that we have or should have, but I think that you would find a lot of the changes that we made are prudent. I still stand behind them, and if I'm still on governance committee a year from now, I would like to bring them back to the full membership.
Thank you. Any thoughts or questions?
It's a good thing when a community comes together and talks, to hear questions and to have responses. And it makes me feel very proud that Ann and I were right when we said Middlebury is a great place to work. And we commend this kind of collaboration and the ability to keep transparent and to keep in communication. So we give thanks.
It seems like a fitting note on which to end, and I want to thank everyone for your respect tonight, your very substantive suggestions and questions, and I think we've heard from the board and the management team that they're going to take them to heart and engage the community as a whole in the steps that Porter will be taking going forward. Madam Chairman.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Douglas. Thank you. I'm going to put Pete back up here to do the governance section. That's okay?
So that last question, I feel, was a great segue.
Yes.
I've got 2 tasks tonight, since I don't have to vote on amendments to the bylaws. I've got 2 tasks tonight. One is to request a vote for the appointment of 2 board members who are actually current board members that were appointed, and also to recognize those 3 board members that will be stepping down. I would like to take a little bit of your time to give some relatively brief bios on the individuals, because I think one thing I want to stress tonight, from my perspective, is that there's a lot of talk about community input into what happens at Porter Hospital. I just want you to know that the board is part of that community. The board members, I can attest to this wholeheartedly, the board members that you currently have right now are fully invested in this hospital and really, really care. We're part of the community too. We're not just the board and it's the community out here. We are part of your community, and we hope that you all will feel that way. So as chair of the governance committee, I'd like to put forth for approval by the membership 2 individuals for 3-year terms. If I could ask them to stand, Savan Kotel and Ingrid Jackson, just so you can put a face to a name. They were appointed by the board They were appointed by the board to, that's all you have to do, to fill vacancies of other board members that had stepped down over the past year or so. So I'd like to again give you a brief bio to give you a flavor for the background of some of the people that are on the board. Sivan is the co-founder and director of operations of Stonecutters Spirits. Stonecutters Spirits ages gin and whiskey here in Middlebury, and released its single barrel gin during the summer of 2015. Sivan was previously the chief operating officer and chief financial officer of Whistle Pig Whiskey. Sivan's current focus is on growing startups into businesses, and is an independent business consultant working with new craft spirits companies to develop operational and business plans. His past life, Sivan spent the first part of his career in financial services at Bear Stearns, JP Morgan Chase, and the Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Ingrid Punderson Jackson lives in Cornwall with her husband, artist Woody Jackson. Ingrid grew up in Vermont and received her BA from Middlebury College in 1998, and also attended Japanese language school at Middlebury. Ingrid established IPJ Real Estate in Middlebury after working for Caldwell Bank for 10 years. She successfully grew IPJ Real Estate, where during her tenure as owner and broker, it was consistently the top agency in real estate sales in Addison County. In 2014, Ingrid sold IPJ Real Estate, and she is now able to spend more time with her family and pursuing other interests in the Middlebury area. Ingrid has a strong connection with her community. I think most of you, if you know her, can attest to that. Both her community at large and as a volunteer on a variety of boards locally and statewide. I'd like to request from the membership a motion to approve Ingrid and Sivan for Porter Medical Center Board of Directors. If I could, we have a second. If I could ask all those in favor, please raise your yellow card. Forgot mine in my seat. Thank you very much. And I also like to thank Sivan and Ingrid for continuing to serve. My next task is I feel very strongly about. I get to recognize some retiring members of our board.
Come on over here.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to ask, is Ken Prine here tonight?
No,
Yes, sir.
Is it on? There it goes.
I must be waving my hands. If I could ask, so Ken Prine is stepping down, Dr. Ben Rosenberg, and Wynn Grant. Those will all be finishing their terms. If I could ask Ben and Wynn to come up front for a second. I'll start with Ken since he's not here. Ken is recently, as I'm sure most of you know, Ken is recently retired president of National Bank of Middlebury. There's not many that can surpass Ken's commitment and dedication to Middlebury and Addison County. As a Porter board member since 2007, Ken has brought his financial, management, and leadership experience to board deliberations and applied his calm and quiet demeanor at precisely the right moment to bring complicated issues into clearer focus. He has served on the hospital, management services, and PMC boards, as well as the finance, investment, and quality committees. Ken is also past chair of the hospital board. Dr. Ben Rosenberg is one of Porter's orthopedic surgeons and has been a member of our board since 2007. He has been a member of our medical community for many years and is the former president of medical staff. Ben has brought both clinical and historical context to our board conversations, as well as his passion for clinical excellence throughout our organization. Ben has served on both the hospital and PMC boards, as well as the PPM Advisory Committee and Audit Committees. Edwin Grant. Wynn is a businessman and former owner of Kennedy Brothers in Virgins. He has been actively involved in governance at Porter since 1995. He is the former chairman of the hospital and Porter Health Systems. Wynn has served a total of 6 terms as a member of each Porter board. was a member of the Quality and Audit Committees and Chair of the Finance Committee. He has served as Treasurer of PMC and both Vice Chair and Chair of the Hospital Board. Wynn has been a tireless advocate and truly devoted volunteer and leader. Hope you all join me in recognizing the time and hard work and dedication each of these individuals has given to the Porter medical community.
Thank you.
And I already talked about my amendment duties, so I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you to everyone who is here. We really appreciate you sharing your candid thoughts with us, and we're glad that we had this opportunity for a dialogue. We heard a lot of information. I took some notes. I've got some seeds planted, and we look forward to, spending time with our healer Fred to get Porter back on track to a place of positivity and moving forward. So, thank you.